Authorities in Dominica deny allegations of an influx of overseas voters for last week's general elections. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Tuesday, December 10th. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. Way off mark. That's what the opposition United Workers' Party, UWP, is being told following its allegations that at least 8,000 overseas-based Dominicans were flown into the country to vote in last Friday's general election. The Dominica Air and Seaports Authority says it has the figures to prove that not nearly that many people came into the island ahead of the polls. Following the polls which the Dominica Labour Party DLP won 18-3 to secure a fifth consecutive term in office, opposition leader Lennox Linton had alleged that thousands of people had arrived by charter and regular flights to participate in the December 6th general election. The UWP leader had initially claimed the party had information that 13,000 people had their flights paid for to cast votes for the DLP in the election. But he later revised the figure to 8,000, and he said his party would not recognize the election results and called for fresh polls based on that information. But in a statement, the Dominica Air and Seaports Authority said the information was incorrect, and it dismissed the claims as part of the fake news establishment being channeled through social media and other news mediums. It said the actual number of passengers arriving on the island by air and sea for the period December 1st to 6th was just 2,717. The authority made a comparison to the same period last year when there were 1,589 arrivals, and it said that it could be clearly seen that the statement about 8,000 passengers arriving in Dominica to participate in the general elections was erroneous, exaggerated, misleading, and mischievous. And it said it was very unfair and irresponsible for persons who should know better to make such unsubstantiated statements without first seeking to get the facts. Well, Suriname is warning against interference in its upcoming general elections. It says it will not condone any attempt to remove its democratically elected government and president as it prepares for the polls in May 2020. Minister of Foreign Affairs Ildif Polak-Bigley issued the warning at the 9th Summit of Heads of State and Government of the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group of States, which wrapped up in Kenya on Tuesday. She told the meeting her country's priority is breaking free from the attempts of colonial and extraterritorial dominance, an approach that she says is encountering great opposition. Her statements come on the heels of the conviction of President Desi Bouterse at a military court last month for his involvement in the 1982 murders of 15 political opponents of his then military government. The United States Embassy in Guyana on Tuesday sought to distance itself from comments made by American political science professor Robert Evan Ellis, who's forecast a victory for the opposition People's Progressive Party, PPP, in the next general election. The embassy said the comments were written by Ellis last April before his employment with the U.S. State Department and in no way reflect its official position. The embassy said the United States' only interest is in free, fair, and peaceful elections on March 2nd, 2020, and the outcome is for the people of Guyana to decide. The ruling coalition government of President David Granger has criticized Professor Ellis for his comments. The coalition says he's a known asset of a certain lobbying firm in the United States that has been paid tens of millions of dollars by the opposition PPP to whitewash its tainted and tattered image. Well, police in Grenada have launched an investigation into claims that the island's regular passports are being sold without the consent of the proper authorities. Acting Police Commissioner Edwin Martin said as far as he's concerned, the issuance of passports is well regulated, and he encouraged anyone with any information about the sale of passports to come forward to the police. He told reporters at the weekly post-cabinet briefing that at the moment, the allegations are unsubstantiated.
Recent as this morning, I actually heard of that rumor being perpetuated. And as it relates to passport, what I would say is that the Office of the Immigration Department is responsible for the distribution of passports. And An unsubstantiated and scandalous remark like that can be very detrimental, not just to the force, but to the image of our country. To me, at this point in time, it is unsubstantiated. I do not have any information to suggest that. If that is something that is occurring, I will really be interested in looking into it. And the fact that that assertion has been made, I will not be waiting for persons to come to me with it. I will be going to whoever is responsible for perpetuating that kind of rumor, because there is an interest on both sides. If it's something like that is happening, it is important that it be resolved. If that sort of information is being perpetuated and is not true, it is critical that it be identified for what it is and neutralized immediately.
The Bahamas government says it's urgently seeking to raise funds in the wake of Hurricane Dorian, which devastated the islands of Grand Bahama and Abaco in September. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis gave that indication on Tuesday. As he said, government has already prepared specific reconstruction delivery plans. Jasmine Brown of Guardian News Network reports.
$3.4 billion in estimated damage caused by Hurricane Dorian. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis said on Tuesday that his administration is urgently seeking to raise funds to complement that $10 million it earmarked for home repairs. Minnis said the government has already prepared specific reconstruction delivery plans, which have been cross-referenced with the damage and loss assessment.
We have addressed 6 sectors: housing, the environment and debris cleanup, education, health, infrastructure, and the economy. We are hopeful that the pledging conference will attract donations to address these specific projects. For example, and quite urgently, we are seeking to raise funds to complement the government's $10 million already given for home repairs.
Minnis was addressing a press conference to announce the United Nations Development Program Pledge Conference scheduled for January 13th at Bahar Mar. The conference is aimed at leveraging the resources of domestic and international private sector and corporate groups. Hurricane Dorian, a Category 5 storm, made landfall in the Bahamas in early September as one of the most powerful Atlantic storms on record. Maximum sustained winds reached 185 miles an hour, with some gusts of up to 220 miles per hour. The UNDP resident representative for Jamaica says she could not say what specific amount they wanted to raise, but she did say this.
I can't really tell you. In doing these pledges, you try your best to get as many people on board so that they can be able to support this. But as the Honorable Prime Minister said, you're looking at a $3.4 billion assessment. Doesn't necessarily mean that's how much it is, but that's what the assessment says. So you can imagine the enormous amount of work that has to be done.
Antonio said in the meantime, the UNDP is looking to finance some projects on the ground to empower the impacted residents.
The UNDP, in collaboration with UNICEF, plans to inject financial resources into the affected communities through a Cash for Work program that empowers those most affected.
She noted that this effort will advance the recovery efforts on those islands. Meantime, Prime Minister Minnis said given the vulnerabilities of our islands, it is imperative to develop very specific reconstruction plans.
We must be creative, we must be smart, we must be innovative, and most of all, we must be bold in how we rebuild and reconstruct Abaco, the Abaco Keys, and Grand Bahama.
Still to come, concern about children classified as uncontrollable being locked up in Jamaica's correctional facilities without a hearing or legal representation. Stay with us.
I'm Brittany Dixon, and you're watching Finding Fit. the show I pair up one client with two trainers. Trainer number one.
Oh my gosh.
It's about fitness, comedy,
I can do this all day,
drama,
In the future, we cannot be late.
inspirational stories, and so much more. You are gonna love it. You can catch Finding Fit prime time this fall on CaribVision.
We continue in Jamaica, where the Office of the Children's Advocate and members of the judiciary are to meet to discuss the issue of children deemed uncontrollable being locked up without a hearing or legal representation. This is even as human rights lobby group Jamaicans for Justice says it's contemplating pursuing legal action on behalf of those children. The issue was raised in a Sunday Gleaner article. TVJ's O'Shane Masters says authorities are looking into the matter.
Under Section 24 of the Child Care and Protection Act, a child deemed uncontrollable can be placed in the custody of the Department of Correctional Services. But an article in the Sunday Gleaner suggests children deemed uncontrollable are being locked away in prison without a hearing or legal representation. Children's advocate Diane Gordon-Harrison says in cases when the child is without legal representation, the presiding judge should inform the Office of the Children's Advocate, OCA, after which the matter would be put off. She explains that the OCA would later intervene to ensure due process is followed.
First, we'd have to gather the statistics to see what exactly does the full picture look like, look at what are some of the issues that are causing these orders to still be made, particularly without the presence of legal representation. So we'll be making some inquiries just to see exactly what the full picture looks like, certainly across the island, since this is what the report is pointing to. Well, I mean, this is something that's priority. So while I don't like giving specific timelines to say in 1 or 2 days, rest assured it's something that will be getting our attention within very short order.
She has also expressed disappointment that the correctional order for juveniles remains on the books despite promises by legislators to remove it. She argues that children considered to be uncontrollable should be psychologically assessed and sent to a special facility instead of being placed in custody.
The social build-out of the options that the court really should have at its disposal is not where it's at. So we clearly need to look at that more fully. We need to look at beefing up those options so that if it is felt that a child cannot remain at home because of the extremeness of the behavior but needs to be put in a facility, that facility really should be one that has all the psychological services available to help that child to be rehabilitated and to cope with whatever underlying issue is triggering the behavior.
The Ministry of Health in Trinidad and Tobago has confirmed that the number of flu deaths has risen to 32 as authorities continue a nationwide influenza vaccination drive. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Roshan Parashram told a radio program in Port of Spain that while the country is not in a crisis as a result of the number of deaths recorded, it's also important for people to get vaccinated. In November, the ministry said the number of suspected cases for the flu season had reached 2,738 and there had been 16 confirmed deaths. It added that the cumulative number of vaccines administered to the public so far has been 16,301. The latest figures show the number of suspected cases had reached 3,232, while the cumulative number of vaccines administered has been 33,101 as of December 9th. That's on Monday. Trinidad and Tobago will have a new look $100 note from December 31st. Central Bank Governor Alvin Hilaire introduced the new polymer notes on Monday and pointed to issues of safety and national security as the reasons for the change. We get that story in this report from TTT News.
December 31st, 2019, the deadline by the central bank to convert those soon-to-be old $100 bills. This leaves just 21 days to either spend or change the existing notes in people's possession. Central Bank Governor Dr. Alvin Hilaire invited members of the media to have a first-hand look at the new $100 notes received on the weekend. Parts of Port of Spain were locked down and traffic diverted to ensure safe receipt of the new polymer notes. Dr. Hilaire said among the main reasons for changing the note are durability and cost savings, safety, national security, and addressing the need to protect the visually impaired.
What we've noticed recently is that there has actually been an uptick in forging our $100 notes, and we found this very disturbing. So people are trying to bleach it, they're trying to upscale it, as you call it, different ways of getting around the thing. We think these features would help to dissuade people from that and make sure that it is not getting into our system.
The central bank head said the existing law allowed for demonetization of currency to take place 3 months after pre-announcement. He said, however, amendments by Parliament over the weekend reduced the time frame to 2 weeks. Dr. Hilaire said in light of this, it was decided the change would happen by month end.
In this case, because of these national security imperatives, the current note, $100 note, will be demonetized quickly. Demonetized meaning that it will no longer serve as national currency of legal tender. In this case, I will announce today that that date is December the 31st, 2019.
At the end of March 2020, citizens are told to expect that all other notes would be converted to polymer.
They will all be modern, they will all be avant-garde, they will all be simple, they will be futuristic, and they will reflect how we are. So by by March the 31st, 2020, you will have all the designs for your new suite of polymer notes.
The currency was disbursed to commercial banks on Monday and would become available to the public from Tuesday.
Ahead in sport, regional cricketers and staff of the game to get monies owed by Cricket West Indies by year end. The details of that story and more after the break.
I'ma kill you, I ain't getting pop. You talking about you hype, you talking about you king and the only thing you king is how you standing there, you ain't body.
I this me and your brain fly. You me know, you me say me catch you play that me know with your friend them kill you and gunshot bend them like a cure. Really.
As usual, Spartan King is confident already in the arena. So his style and the way he brings off his lyrics is flawless.
All meaningful, substantive, philosophical education is valuable to us, whether it is Asian, whether it is European, whether it is African. It is extremely important. One must examine, and like CLR did, all avenues of thought. Now, one must have a certain integrity with regard to the things that you do believe in and work with.
Advancing our development agenda through innovation, industry, and investment. That was the theme for the Tobago Economic and Business Outlook Conference 2019. This year's conference examined solutions for some of Tobago's most pressing economic challenges and provided an update on the island's development agenda.
We chose this theme because we firmly believe that innovation, investment, and industry are integral to advancing our island's development.
Monies owed by Cricket West Indies CWI to cricketers and staff in the regional game will be paid up by the end of the year. That assurance from Chairman of the CWI's Finance Committee, Wilford Heaven, who says the Ricky Scarrett-led administration has been forced to clear $20 million in outstanding debt, which was behind the delay in salary payments. TVJ's Renardo Brown reports.
In response to a story carried by the Gleaner on December 1, Chairman of the Finance Committee for Cricket West Indies, Wilford Billy Heaven, has given assurance that the problem of players not being paid will be resolved before month end.
The players will be paid before the end of this calendar year. As I said, the facility that we are negotiating within the next week or two, that should materialize because it is set on a condition of doing some other things.
According to the Gleaner article, the problem of late payment has persisted for the better part of a year. But Heaven, who is also president of the Jamaica Cricket Association, says the issue was unavoidable.
I don't want to make any excuse for the CWI, but late payment to players and staff is not a new phenomenon. This has been happening for the last 2 or so years. And it's not that people will not be paid. It's just that there are some delays. But based on a meeting that I chaired yesterday of the Finance Committee, the CWI will very soon be in a position to offset all its obligations.
According to him, the main reason behind the non-payment is the current debt CWI is facing.
We have paid just under $20 million in outstanding debt since the new administration took office. So there are calls on the funds that we have, some of which have been maybe a year or more old. So we have to honor those coming down. It's not that we have ignored our players because we rely on them as our most critical asset.
Heaven has assured, however, that things will change in the coming weeks.
We'll let the board know the facilities that we are negotiating, which should come on stream within the next 2 weeks maximum. So we will be getting some bridge finance.
Rain brought much-needed relief to Bermuda's battle-weary cricketers when their Cricket World Cup Challenge League B match against Kenya on Sunday was abandoned, which saw each team picking up 1 point. The weather intervention brought an official end to Bermuda's confidence-sapping 8-match losing streak across all competitions, including 6 defeats in the recent T20 World Cup qualifier in neighboring United Arab Emirates. Kenya moved up the table on Monday by beating Jersey by 7 wickets, and Uganda is on top after 4 successive wins. But Bermuda's first point leaves them at the bottom with 2 matches to come against Jersey on Wednesday and Italy the following day. Each team will play 15 matches in total in the next 2 years, with only the group winner moving on to the next stage of qualification for the 2023 World Cup in India. Switching sports, a 15-year-old has landed Guyana its first gold medal in the Caribbean Boxing Championship, which took place in Trinidad and Tobago. The details in this report from HGP Sport.
The Forgotten Youth Federation boxer, 15-year-old Alicia Jackman, who is arguably Guyana's most promising female boxer, was again a dominant force inside the ring at the 2019 Caribbean Boxing Championships. Alicia stopped Trinidadian Sharika Elias in her opening bout in the young women novice 64 kg category. The East Rumvelt youngster was also able to deliver a unanimous decision against Jamaica Brittany McFarlane. Alicia displayed superior boxing skills in the fight, and although she was not as dominant as in her previous encounter, she did deliver some decisive blows throughout the 3 rounds. Even though she was aggressive in the opening round, it was not until round 2 that the southpaw stuck to her game plan and executed her 1-2s, which kept McFarlane, who had won gold last year in Guyana at the Caribbean Schoolboys and Junior Boxing Tournament, at bay. The Central High School student then kept her composure to secure the 3rd round and the contest. One of the outstanding things about the boxer was her weight class rise. She entered the competition as a junior lightweight, but because she did not have an opponent in her category, her coaches had stepped her up to the youth 64 kg. Despite the many negatives that existed around this trip for the boxers, Guyana's athletes continue to shine.
Meanwhile, another youngster is making waves, this time in Trinidad and Tobago and in the sport of tennis. Cameron Wong is set to represent the Twin Island Republic at the Orange Bowl in Florida later this month. TV6's Vinod Narwani has that story.
At the age of 12, Cameron Wong is a force to be reckoned with in local tennis. She's the top female player at under 12 and under 14 levels and has been giving players in the under 16 category a tough time on the courts as well. Wong has represented TNT since the age of 10, and she's grateful to her dad, Robert, for that.
My dad brought me on the court one day, and I just liked it after that. Well, he had to take time off of his job to travel with me when I got to play and stuff.
Wong relishes the challenge of playing against opponents in the bigger age group, but knows she cannot rest on her laurels if she wants to make it to the top. Her coach, Jerome Ward, admires her style of play, saying she is one of a kind.
I've been coaching for a few years in Trinidad, and I had a few years experience in the United States, and she's one of the players I've come across that has probably almost all the shots in the game from a young age, and that is why we have so much belief in her, because she can do anything with the ball, and that talent alone speaks, leaps and bounds.
Wong, who attends school in Port of Spain, has to find ways to make time for her studies and her game.
I attend SGC, St. Joseph's Convent, and I have to, after I train, I have to go home and do my studying and stuff.
How do you integrate your studies and your sport?
I make a schedule, so when I come home, I have my books laid out and I study.
A lot of pressure?
Yes.
Her upcoming assignment is this month's Orange Bowl tennis tournament in Florida, where she plans to give it her all.
I'm excited because I'm getting to play against different players and get different game styles, and I know it's going to be tough, so I have to work very hard and stuff.
Wong has qualified to represent TNT at the Under-14 World Juniors Tournament in the Dominican Republic in January 2020 and at the Junior Fed Cup in El Salvador in the month of February.
And that's the sport. We'll be right back. Again, the major developments of this day. Authorities in Dominica deny allegations of an influx of overseas voters for last week's general elections. And in sport, regional cricketers and staff of the game to get monies owed by Cricket West Indies by year end. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport round the clock, subscribe to CanadaNews.com. And for more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be back here again tomorrow, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night.